Ayatollah Khamenei of Iran led Friday prayers in front of a huge cheering crowd in Tehran this morning. Iran's supreme leader called for the Muslim countries of the world to unite against the common enemy as he held a rifle by his side. He called both Hamas's brutal October 7th attack and Iran's missile attack on Israel legitimate and legal. The Ayatollah labelled Israel as the rabid dog of America and vowed a further response to its aggression that would neither be rushed nor delayed. That aggression was evident in Beirut this morning. Explosions rang out near Lebanon's only airport. And heavy strikes on the Beirut suburb of Dahiya, a Hezbollah stronghold, targeted Hashem Safieddine, the rumoured successor to Hassan Nasrallah, the Iran-backed militant group's longtime leader who was killed last week. The fate of Safieddine currently remains unclear. Another strike closed the road to Syria, forcing some of the 1 million displaced Lebanese people to continue their flight on foot. The Israeli military said it has killed 250 Hezbollah members in 4 days of ground operations in southern Lebanon, and that 2 Israeli soldiers were killed in northern Israel today. Residents of Tulkarem were shook by a rare airstrike on the occupied West Bank that killed 18. We heard a plane here and we heard a whistling sound. A few seconds later I heard a huge explosion. The windows smashed and I flew from the chair. In Gaza, medics say 29 were killed by Israeli strikes as Hamas fired rockets from the enclave into southern Israel for the first time in 2 months. Global oil prices surged yesterday after US President Joe Biden said that Israel may strike Iran's oil facilities in response to Tuesday's missile attack. Iran's Revolutionary Guards responded today saying that if attacked, Iran would target Israeli energy and gas. Fergal Gallagher, RTE News.
Well, we're joined now by our Deputy Foreign Editor, Edmund Heafy, who's in Tel Aviv, and by our correspondent, Fran McNulty, who's in Beirut for us this evening. Edmund, much of the focus has been on the strikes on Lebanon, but Israel did hit other places today too, as we just saw in that report.
Yes, Sharon, the war in Gaza continues unabated, and unfortunately, that's no exaggeration. In one 24-hour period this week, the Israeli military killed 99 people. That's according to the Hamas-run Health Ministry. In one single operation in Gaza, in Khan Yunis, 51 people were killed. And so far today, 29 people have been killed by the Israeli military in strikes. And as Fergal was reporting there, rockets were coming in the other direction today for the first time in a few months from Gaza. I was in southern Israel earlier today, and around an hour after we left the area of Kisufim, sirens blared there. Now, there was no damage in southern Israel thanks to Israeli air defences, which is a stark contrast to the situation in the West Bank city of Tulkarem. 18 people were killed in an Israeli strike there late last night. Now, that's a very high death toll for the West Bank. It's one of the highest since October 7th, and actually one of the highest since the Second Intifada in 2002. Now, the Israeli military said it killed a Hamas commander, but it looks like the other 17 people who were killed were ordinary people, including a family of 5.
And Edmund, what's the reaction there been to that rare speech made by Iran's supreme leader today?
Yes, Sharon, it's very rare for the Ayatollah to lead prayers in Tehran, Friday prayers in Tehran, and it's very rare for him to deliver a sermon. It's usually related to national security matters. The last time he did this was in 2020, following the US killing of a top Iranian general in Iraq. Now, it's also surprising that he appeared in person in Tehran, given the obvious security concerns. Now, the Ayatollah is a Farsi speaker, but he switched to Arabic midway through his sermon to address Palestinians and the people of Lebanon. He said that they shared a common enemy, and he was obviously referring to Israel. Now, his remarks will certainly factor into decision-making here in Israel in relation to a retaliation for last Tuesday's strike on Israel, the barrage of missile strikes. Now, the Ayatollah said that those strikes were completely legitimate, and they were obviously in retaliation for the killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, who was a close friend and ally of the Ayatollah.
And Fran McNulty in Beirut this evening, amid the worsening situation in that country, Irish citizens were evacuated today. How did that happen?
Sharon, 24 Irish citizens opted to leave. We knew this was coming because the Department of Foreign Affairs telephoned everybody who is here in Lebanon over recent days to say there is a possible option here if you would like to get out. The Canadian government and the Dutch government cooperated with the Irish government and flew those citizens out. It was quite a sight. We were watching them taking off, chartered planes coming and going here from various governments all day long. Within minutes of those planes carrying those Irish citizens taking off, probably 2 or 3 minutes, some huge explosions in and around Beirut, and we've had many of those explosions again this evening. The Tánaiste and the Foreign Affairs Minister, Micheál Martin, he confirmed these developments when he spoke today in Cork.
Essentially now all citizens who have indicated a desire to leave Lebanon have been assisted in leaving Lebanon. But obviously the situation is fluid. Just to explain, many of the other citizens are there for quite a long time. They have deep roots in Lebanon and are not anxious to leave at this stage, or indeed haven't been for quite a while.
Fran, for those who can't leave the country, many of them still having to flee their homes, where are they going?
Yeah, it's a worsening situation, Sharon, because the people who are moving south, and more people are coming from south as the Israeli bombardment expands and the evacuation areas that they are ordering also expands. People are coming, many of them here to Beirut. One of their options to get to Syria closed off, we heard there in Fergal's package. The main crossing between Beirut and Damascus bombed in the early hours of this morning by the Israeli army. They have claimed there was a 3.5 kilometre tunnel running along that road, which was being used to bring weapons in. But we have been seeing all over Beirut a situation where people have nowhere to go. It is a desperate situation. The lack of a government or authorities mean that support for these people is very limited, and we've been out and about today looking at some of those displaced. On a Beirut beach, a woman bathes her little boy. 2 of the hundreds of thousands of people displaced by this war. More than 1,000 of them have made this beach their home, far away from where they lived in South Lebanon. Children play. Others sit and contemplate. Some have come here the short distance from the Hezbollah stronghold of Daya. They can see the Israeli fighter jets bomb it relentlessly from the beach.
By staying alive, we resist. And to stay alive, you need to take care of yourself and to put yourself in a safe place.
For these people, this is reality now. They can't afford to leave Lebanon. They are dependent on charity groups to feed them and provide healthcare. But their long-term needs will be much greater.
Most of the people who are here, they're left without homes. So even if the war ended, they have no place back to go. So it's going to take a lot of time to rebuild their homes. Beyond the beach, as the smoke rises from missile strikes, you can see planes take off. But they are booked out, and just one airline continues to fly. The displaced line the streets, sleeping in cars as we drive north through Beirut. We reach a marina, a world away from the packed beach near Daya. Those who can afford it queue to take a yacht to Cyprus. For many, this is the only way out.
It's devastating. I mean, you see everybody on the streets, and you see people are struggling. They sleep on the floor. It's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. I mean, we're lucky that I have a passport. I have an American citizen. But other people, I don't know how difficult it will be for them. I'm sure it is so much difficult.
Rami says goodbye, not knowing when he'll make it back to see his sister Lena again. The growing number of displaced is concerning aid agencies here. Today, the World Health Organization flew medical aid in, preparing to meet the demands of a population with nowhere to go. As sun sets, another night of airstrikes lies ahead. Reality in Beirut for now. And we're joined here in Beirut by Eddie Higgins from UNICEF. Eddie, thanks for speaking to us this evening. You're based here in Lebanon. Looking at the children there on the beach, they are particularly affected. How badly, and what are the issues you're seeing?
It's an absolutely tragic situation that we've seen escalate so rapidly over the past 8 to 10 days. We've had huge bombardments right across the country. They've completely expanded, not just now in the south as they have been for the past 1 year, but now we're seeing the bombardments and airstrikes across the southern suburbs, of course, as you've reported. So it means many hundreds of thousands, now over 400,000 children have been forcibly displaced and are seeking shelter in anywhere that they can get protection. The government has opened over 900 shelters. Many of these are schools, so it means the school year hasn't even begun. And many of these children were fled with less than a few minutes' notice. Last night in parts of Beirut, we had families, they had to yet again, for the 8th consecutive night, pull children out of their beds to seek somewhere safe. And as your report said, some of them have ended up on the sides of roads in Beirut to try and find somewhere.
And to see them playing on the beach, and they are happy and they're getting along with life and their parents are doing the best for them. But there are very obvious concerns, in particular when it comes to sanitation and health. What needs to be done to address them?
There's huge concerns. We now have 400,000 children, over 1 million people who have been impacted. And there's no way that any humanitarian system or any government would be stretched to provide shelter and protection for this many children. Some of the children that you saw today are some of the lucky ones. Sadly, we've had hundreds of children have been injured and more have been killed. Over 120 children have been killed, 50 in 2 days last week, which is completely against all international humanitarian law. We've seen massive parts of Lebanon as well. The infrastructure has been destroyed, water pumping stations, more than 24 of them. So we now have hundreds of thousands of people who have also been cut off from clean drinking water. We've had hospitals bombarded, over 10 this week alone. Today we saw the killing of at least 10 more paramedics, bringing the total to well over 100 just in the past 2 weeks alone. So we need to do a massive relief operation with winter clothing kits, because winter is coming, as well as water, food aid, etc. We have to do a huge campaign to ramp up.
Eddie Higgins of UNICEF, thank you for joining us here this evening. We do appreciate you taking the time to come out. Well, that's it from us in Beirut for now.